Hello? Oh, okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to be doing this talk with you today. This topic is something that's very near and dear to my heart. It's about scuba diving, how I fell in love with it, how it changed my life and ambitions, and how I think it can be the key to youth getting involved in conservation. My name is Julia. As he said, I'm 15 years old. I am a PADI ambassador and PADI Junior Dive Master. Recently got certified PADI Junior Dive Master. I'm French. I'm French. I came from an island called New Caledonia. I was born on an island called New Caledonia, which is near Australia in the South Pacific. And since we're at a dive exhibition, I thought, why not promote where I come from? It's definitely a bucket list place for me. I moved away when I was 4, so I never got to dive there, but I definitely want to dive there one day. It's got the 3rd longest barrier reef, I believe, and it was on the UNESCO World Heritage List, and it has been since 2008. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I hope to be able to dive there one day. Oh. So my mom used to say that whenever she wanted peace and quiet, she just needed to bring me to the beach, and so she did again and again and again. I guess the ocean always had a calming effect on me since I was very young. And I don't blame myself because the island, New Caledonia, is also known as the closest island to paradise. That's its nickname. So I moved away when I was 4 years old and spent a year in Terengganu. I moved to Malaysia, where I've been ever since. And that's where I learned how to swim. Mind you, I'm aware it looks like I'm drowning, but I was eager to learn, so I did. I didn't speak any English or Mandarin, so I didn't understand anything that my swimming coach was saying, but I managed to learn because I was eager to, so I've always been a water baby. Then I moved to KK, and that's where I learned how to speak English and how to scuba dive, so 2 very main components in my life. My diving journey started on my 8th birthday. I was driven to the jetty. It was a surprise. I didn't know I was going diving. I was driven to the jetty, and I saw Melly, who was my first instructor, waiting for me, and I instantly knew that I was going diving because I already knew her. She was a friend of my parents, and it had been on my bucket list for a really long time. I had wanted to do it. I had seen my sister do it, and my dad did it as well, and I was very jealous when my sister did it. But I was too young to do it, and the tank kind of intimidated me. But this time, I went for it. I wasn't afraid. And flying had always been one of my dream superpowers, and underwater, I could do that. Not to mention the fact that I could breathe underwater, which is a superpower in itself. It has such a weightless sensation, and it was an incredible experience. It was really like becoming a fish. I have to give a lot of credit to Melly, who was my first instructor and my first dive buddy, because she had such a fun and enthusiastic personality that was so contagious. She gave me her passion for scuba diving from the very start. And she also taught me to respect the ocean and always stay close to her because safety comes first all the time. I moderately appreciated the fact that she I moderately appreciated the fact that she held on to my tank all the time because I was so keen to fly by myself. So what I saw under the ocean really changed my perception of what I thought the ocean was. I had always thought that it was just a vast, big swimming pool, like with fish in it, because I had been told that it had fish in it. But I never actually saw below the surface, and the fact that it was actually buzzing with life, teeming with life, and that was so colorful. And I fell in love with it. I was hooked the first time that I did it. In fact, Melly told me, I didn't remember this, but she told me that whenever we went diving, the first time I went, We were very shallow. We were at 2 meters. And every time I saw a fish, so very often, every 5 minutes, I would signal to her to go up, and I would tell her, that was awesome. And then we would go back down, and then I would see another fish, and I would say, that was incredible. So she gets a lot of credit for putting up with the fact that I had to comment on every single fish that I saw. But I absolutely fell in love with it and hooked, and I've never looked back since. She also really tailored the way that she worked with me, because obviously I was actually her first kid student, I guess you'd say. So she tailored her way around the fact that I was a child, which I love about the diving community because they're so welcoming. On my 9th birthday, I celebrated my 9th bubble maker. And I kept going strong for the rest of the year. I gained more experience. I learned more about the ocean. Unfortunately, I also learned more about the threats that the ocean was facing. I even went to 𝐀𝐕𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐍𝐄, which obviously you can see the viz is not that great, but I was so happy to be there. This is my instructor, Ella. She tailored her way of working with me as well. I love the fact that the instructors were always so welcoming of the fact that I was so young, even though I was sometimes the first one that they'd ever have. I always had fun, and she taught me new things. We were on a sea walking path, as you can see, and it's incredible because it's like walking down a street, except you're underwater. So I made that link between the two worlds. It's like a whole different dimension, literally. I had a lot of fun with her, but I kept diving. The place where I dived the most often was in TARP. TARP is the place where I got my open water certification, and it's made of it has 5 islands in it: Sapi, Manukan, Mamutik, Gaia, and Solog. And it's where I've had the best experiences in my diving life, because that's where I saw 2 whale sharks this year, actually, one with my group as well. So it's spreads on 50 square kilometers, and it has over 25 beautiful dive sites that are only a 10-minute boat ride from the mainland. So I'm very lucky to be living in such a beautiful tropical area. The temperatures around all year round stay around 29 degrees to 30 degrees, except for when it's the cold season. And one of the downsides of being an island child, of always growing up on the island in the tropics, was that I cannot handle cold at all. So when it's 26 degrees Celsius, I can't handle it. So the cold season is my least favorite season, but it's also my most favorite season, because that's when the whale sharks come. So there's a balance to that. At 11 years old, I did my first reef cleanup, which was actually organized by my school, because I had learned about the issues that the ocean was facing. The saying that you protect what you love is very true. I had fallen in love with this place, and when I found out that there was something I could do, I of course wanted to join. This was the first time that I had hands-on impact on the ocean. And I was the youngest participant there, but I didn't really mind it. Everyone else was 17 or 18. But I was just there to do something for the ocean. And I really enjoyed it. I really loved the fact that I was able to do something, even at such a young age. It's very uncommon to be able to contribute to conservation directly when you're so young. I was 11, but I was able to do it with this reef cleanup. So when I was given the opportunity to join a turtle program a few months later, it was a definitive yes for me. Luckily for me, it was also a yes for my school. They let me skip a week, which I'm very grateful for. My school has always been supportive of the efforts that I do for conservation. And I absolutely loved it as well. 93 turtles were caught and tagged and then released again. I was obviously young, and there were 2 boats. One was a diving boat, which I was a spotter on. I spotted the turtles, and then someone else would catch it, and they would bring it back up to the surface. And then there was a research boat, which is this one. where I would be like a little helper. I would help to scrub the turtle shell so that they could write the numbers in, and then I would fan it. But most of what I learned was through watching. I watched Dr. Pushpa, who's over there, from the university that we have in Sabah, who was taking pictures of the turtles, who was measuring them, and I learned so much about science. It was the first time that I saw two things that I loved, science and diving, come together for conservation, and that's actually what gave me the idea to have a career out of it. I hope to be a marine biologist one day, and this is what inspired me to do that, because I was able to do something that I loved every day to help the animals that I loved. So as you can see, this is kind of what the boat looked like. Some of the turtles were almost bigger than me. They were absolutely huge, but I was so lucky for them to be so welcoming and for them to let me help. I was also able to adopt one of the turtles, which I released. This is the turtle that I adopted. His name is Will. He was number 34. And they let me release him. That was the only turtle that I was releasing because he was a small one. So I adopted him, and that's another way that I was able to contribute to the conservation. As you can see, these were the people involved. I was the youngest one in the program, but I was nicknamed the underwater rocket because I was able to keep up with the speed of the marine police who were diving with us as well. And I really didn't mind being the youngest. I had a lot of fun. And I was able to do something for the animals that I loved hands-on as well. Then in January 2020, I decided that I wanted to share my journey as a diver. I wanted to try and raise awareness, so I created a Facebook page that I called Seed of Hope. This name was actually derived from a post that a community of reef cleanup divers in KK do called Dive Rangers. I had asked them to be part of a net removal, but I was still young and it was a hard job to do. They were afraid for the safety, so they said that I couldn't do it that time. But they made a post about me, calling me a seed of hope, saying that it was an inspiration that a young person was so interested in conservation. And that's what I named my page after, because I loved the phrase. Then COVID hit and the MCO started, and I wanted to keep myself busy, so I did a series of interviews with local and international guests of 29 people. Maybe you'd recognize some of them. I'm on there as well because I did a Q&A. And they were representatives of NGOs. It was from broad things like representatives of NGOs and very specific things like glaciologists. And these interviews really helped to show me how issues that the ocean was facing was really interconnected. For example, Heidi Silvestre is a glaciologist, and the fact we obviously don't see glaciers every day, but they have a huge impact on the sea level, on the sea levels, and so they contribute to ocean issues as well. And they were all there were 29 of them, and I was able to learn how interconnected everything was. Then I got my advanced course as soon as diving was relaxed a little bit more, and I did my first net removal. This was another way that I got to do hands-on conservation, and it's sad to learn about the impacts that humans have on the ocean. It's sad to see things like this. I actually untangled a crab, but it was already dead. So it's sad to see, but it's important to sensitize children. So that's why I think it's important for young children to start diving as soon as they can, because then they learn about these issues and they'll grow up to do something about it. So then I also did, this was one of the nets that we saw. I filmed it, and it was completely smothering the reef. And I also did a COT removal, a crown of thorns sea star removal. And I kept doing conservation. The scuba industry was so supportive of my efforts. And I was inspired and motivated by the fact that so many of them were doing projects. I started my Instagram account a year after I did my Facebook page because I wanted to share my journey on more platforms. And on there, I saw a lot of young conservationists as well who inspired and motivated me to keep going with my efforts. And it was so inspiring to see that so many young people were actually concerned about this issue. I think that it's so important that they start young because then they have a lifetime ahead to do things for conservation. It's impossible for me to stand up here to talk about conservation without talking about my favorite animal, which are sharks. They're one of the oldest but also most misunderstood species. Some people, whenever they hear the name, they'll immediately think of danger at its best and agonizing death at its worst. But sharks are actually none of that. They're also known as a delicacy, particularly in Asia, unfortunately. But they are actually very important for the ecosystem. An ocean without sharks is a dead ocean, and then a planet without an ocean is a dead planet as well. So our well-being actually depends on their well-being as well. People need to understand that when we enter their home, it's their environment. They don't know us, they didn't invite us, and they're naturally curious. I've seen sharks myself, and I've never been afraid. At most, I've been frustrated because they're so shy and they leave so quickly. I'm not an expert myself like Christina Zenatu, who I actually interviewed, was one of my interview guests. She's formed mutual trust with sharks to the point where she removes hooks like this. And she's really the living proof that you can build a connection with them and they'll give you back trust and respect. And she removes the hooks from their mouths because she loves them. She has a quote that she often says, which is, "There are no monsters in the sea, only the ones we make up in our heads." And I think that's very true. I think that fear is not the solution to anything. We can coexist with other apex predators like sharks, but it requires an open mind and empathy and education. So I also want to talk about a project that I'm very proud of, which is Bubbles of Hope. They are a group of teen divers from the ages of 10 to 16 years old. It's not always easy to gather together because obviously some of them want to enjoy the weekends, some have homework, we have to work around homework, others have family commitments, but when we do get together, we get to do an action that's good for the planet. I created the group in April 2022. And as you can see, our efforts were rewarded in our 10th Bubbles of Hope reef cleanup because we got to see a whale shark while we were cleaning up the reef. We got the support and partnership of two dive centers, local dive centers in Kota Kinabalu called 𝐀𝐕𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐍𝐄 and Down Below. And I'm very grateful for them for supporting our efforts. To me, the group is a way of empowering youth to do something good for the environment. And also, I remember when I was 11 and I got to do something for conservation hands-on, and the feeling, I was so proud of what I did, and so I wanted to share that with other young people and make them feel empowered, like they could have an impact on the environment. I asked them to do a video. I asked them to answer a question. I asked the two youngest members to answer what they would describe the ocean as in one word. And then the oldest ones, I asked them to answer why they joined Bubbles of Hope. And they can't be here, obviously, but they are here virtually. So this is Bubbles of Hope, the group.
To describe the ocean is life, freedom, exploration.
I joined the team because I like diving.
I joined Bubbles of Hope because Julia is one of my closest friends and she asked me to, and also I just find a real joy in diving and knowing that that can bring, you know, a change to the world through conservation and stuff like that. That really makes me happy.
I joined Bubbles of Hope because I had just started diving and I was really passionate about it. I also really want to help protect our environment and keep it safe.
I wanted to join Bubbles of Hope so I can go diving with my friends and also clean up the ocean together.
I joined Bubbles of Hope to help with the marine conservation and to clean up the marine debris from the coral reefs.
The reason why I joined Bubbles of Hope is to clean the ocean and meet more divers with the same interests and passion with me.
I joined Bubbles of Hope because you get to do fun scuba diving and you're cleaning up the trash while you're at it. So, I mean, it's a win-win situation.
I just started scuba diving and wanted to meet more teen divers and do my part for the ocean.
So this group reminded me of the reason why I created it was when I was younger, 7 years ago when I started my diving journey. I was the only young one on the boat. And over the years, I saw more and more of my classmates start diving, as you can see. And I thought, why not bring them together and do some collective action together? And that's why I created Bubbles of Hope. I wanted to empower them to do something for the environment, and it's always fun when we can meet, and also it's better than staying in front of electronics all day, I suppose, and we are blessed with having such beautiful islands around us that it would be a waste not to protect it. The reward that we had on our 10th day trip, which was our last day trip, the whale shark, was definitely a reminder of why we do what we do, why we clean up the ocean. We want more of those interactions with these species, and the only way to do that is if we have a clean ocean and we keep their habitat clean, because we are the reason why their habitat is not clean, why there's pollution. So thank you very much for watching. I hope if you know any young people, young kids who would be interested in conservation, tell them that the future of the planet is in their hands, and every action is worthy. There's no too small action. One small action is better than no big action. And if they're up for it, if they're curious about it, suggest that they do a bubble maker, because it might just change their life for the better and for the better of the planet. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to find me later. I'll be walking around. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Julia. In the meanwhile, well, that was an interesting topic. So teenagers, youngsters.